Should the next Governor-General be Indigenous? Well, the current Governor-General, David Hurley, is set to step down at the end of his 5-year term, and has begged the inevitable question of who is to replace him, and has been mooted that the replacement should be Indigenous, a rather predictable suggestion. Presumably, of course, those same people want the so-called right type of Indigenous person, and are not contemplating people like Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price or Warren Mundine. Rather, they're contemplating people like Megan Davis or Marsha Langton. But what then about the principle of an Indigenous Governor-General? Should we be going out and selecting someone because they are Indigenous for this job? Well, my view is that we should select the best person for the job, whether it's the Governor-General or any other job. The Governor-General, of course, being Australia's head of state, should definitely be the best person for the job. And we shouldn't be choosing them based on identity characteristics. Rather, we should choose them based on their inherent skills and qualifications. Now, that person might be of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander descent, or they might not be. Their ethnicity should not actually be a relevant consideration. What is relevant is their ability to do the job and do the job well. To this end, we should look at the qualifications and their associated attributes. Now, of course, the chief requirement for the Governor-General is to actually accept what the job is. They need to accept that they are the monarch's representative in Australia. They are, at the moment, the King's representative. When the Queen was alive, they were the Queen's representative. That is, they can't go around advocating for a Republican movement if they're going to be the Governor-General. It is simply incompatible. Now, to be clear, in theory, a Republican could still become the Governor-General, but they would have to shelve those aspirations and shelve that advocacy in order to undertake the job. And even then, it would be rather peculiar. Now, this is not a question of free speech. It's a question of the inherent requirements for the job. The inherent requirement of the job is that you accept you are the Queen's or the King's representative in Australia. That is what is required of the Governor-General. Therefore, it is required that they accept that position. It would be like saying that the inherent requirement for a firefighter is to be able to go and fight fires. Therefore, if you're afraid of fire, you probably shouldn't be a firefighter. It's the same basic logic. The inherent requirement of being a Governor-General is being the King's representative. Therefore, if you don't like the King, it would be rather difficult for you to be the Governor-General. Or to use another analogy, it would be like saying you would never hire a CEO that would burn your company to the ground. Or at least, you shouldn't. Although it seems the Woolworths CEO is giving that his best shot. Similarly, however, you would not want to hire a Governor-General that would want to burn the institution to the ground. Therefore, the Governor-General needs to accept what the actual position is. Now, this automatically should eliminate some leading candidates, such as Marsha Langton, for example, who is a staunch Republican. The next requirement, of course, should be that the Governor-General is not inherently divisive or inherently partisan. Now, Governor-Generals inherently will have political views. Every individual has political views. However, the Governor-General is not a political position, and the Governor-General needs to unite Australians, not divide Australians. By convention, the Governor-General avoids political debates and doesn't take sides in political arguments. Again, this is not a question of freedom of speech. It's a question of the inherent requirements of the job. The Governor-General, for example, could be called upon to dismiss a Prime Minister. And if you're going to be calling upon a Governor-General to do such a heavy responsibility, you want them to do so in as far a non-partisan manner as humanly possible. Therefore, you don't want the Governor-General entering into partisan debates, because that would undermine their ability to do the job. Now, of course, former politicians have become Governor-Generals, and they've done a good job in some cases. However, they ought to act in a non-partisan way, and Australians need confidence that they would act in a non-partisan way. Thus, the Governor-General must avoid both bias and the appearance of bias. And this, therefore, would automatically eliminate many leading voice proponents, which would include people like Marsha Langton or Megan Davis or Linda Burney, who are all going to be rather partisan, at least based on their conduct during the Voice referendum. Now, potentially they could act in a non-partisan manner, but we'd need some clear space between the voice referendum and when they were appointed for us to be able to get confidence in that being the case. The Governor-General should also possess some inherent skills, inherent communication skills, inherent organizational skills, inherent leadership and law-related skills. They should be a responsible individual that can take seriously the lofty weight of their position. For example, as Governor-General, we've had generals become Governor-General. We've had members of the High Court become Governor-General. We've had individuals who are highly qualified become the Governor-General. This isn't to say we should pick individuals from a specific group or a specific organization or a specific career, but it gives you an idea of the types of skills and qualifications that would be rather useful in this position. Someone who takes leadership responsibilities seriously. And clearly, people who are in the military tend to do this. Now, not all military individuals are perhaps that reliable, and not all military individuals are non-controversial. However, it can be a starting point to look. One could also look at some members of the judiciary, or one can look at lawyers as potential governors-general. The reason that would be useful is the Governor-General also has legal responsibilities. Therefore, their ability to grapple with the law, their ability to take their legal requirements seriously, is an inherent requirement of the job. The Governor-General also needs to be able to communicate, because the Governor-General engages in various ceremonial functions. Therefore, you need a Governor-General who, while non-partisan and non-controversial, can in fact actually communicate to the general public, because that is, like I've said, an inherent requirement of the job. Now, all of this means that, for example, a member of the military might be a good candidate for Governor-General, they might not be. We need to evaluate them based on their inherent skills, and they might have picked up some skills from the Army or the Air Force or the Navy, but they might not have. Similarly with members of the High Court, they might be suitable, they might not be. We need to evaluate them as their own individual person to determine whether or not they have the skills and the qualifications and the acumen to become the Governor-General, and whether the Australian public would have confidence in them being able to fulfill their role. Now, all of this means that the Governor-General could be Indigenous. However, their identity should not be the determining characteristic. Rather, their inherent skills and qualifications should be. We should pick the individual who is the best person for the job, rather than looking at these identity characteristics, which oftentimes just descend into stereotyping and bias. And bias overall should be avoided, because individuals should be treated as individuals and not simply put into a box or stereotyped. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear what you think about the next Governor-General.